So I'm going to talk about cholinergic urticaria and update. I have a lot of people who have been on my channel for a while, and they also have cholinergic urticaria or CU. If you're new to the channel and you haven't looked back at the CU, which we actually have a playlist that talks about CU, but basically it is a skin condition where when you get too hot or too cold, or in some situations for some people, if you're either hot or cold, you will break out in hives. Sometimes they're visible, sometimes they're not. And it feels like a bunch of mosquito stings all over your body. In my case, I get it on my back. I get it on my arms. In terms of the itching sensation, visibly, I look normal. But it feels like a lot of mosquito stings everywhere. And the itching does not stop. Sometimes I will experience this, especially this time of year when I go outside and it's really cold and I come inside where it's really, really warm. That sudden change will instantly make me start to itch. Part of the problem with CU is you are not able to sweat in many cases. As you sweat, obviously that cools your body down so that you don't actually go through heat exhaustion. Well, in my case, and in a lot of people's cases probably, because you're not able to sweat instantly like most people can just whenever you get hot, then heat exhaustion is a real reality. It almost happened to me earlier this summer. So it is a concern. Sometimes with some people, hot food will bring it on. That doesn't bother me. Hot food, and sorry if I'm like spitting on myself. I actually went to the dentist today and they had to do some work back here, so I'm still numb. Feels like my lip is like all the way down here. But anyway, the hot food, spicy food doesn't really bother me. I will sweat on top of my head and my forehead, and I'm good. And that's where the only places I typically will sweat. Even under my arms, it's rare for me to sweat there. It would get damp. It's kind of gross. But it won't necessarily pour sweat. Any place else, it just doesn't sweat. It just doesn't. However, if I go into extremely hot conditions, I will instantly sweat, like a sauna. That I will literally, it looks like water is pouring off of my face. Like it would just be pouring streams of water. And it feels great because we don't get to sweat like a lot of normal people do. Or if I'm in Haiti. Florida is still not hot enough, believe it or not. It's hot enough to make you itch, but it's not hot enough to make you sweat. Haiti is so hot. When I went there, it is so hot. CU doesn't have a chance to even come up. It's just so hot. You will sweat in the tropics like that, just like that. Everywhere will sweat. My back was sweating. It felt great to stand out in the sun, look up, and it is scorching hot. People probably thought I was a weirdo. But it was scorching, scorching hot. And I was looking up at the sun and just enjoying it. And you could feel the sun just frying you, right? It's just so hot. But it felt great to be in the sun and not running for shade or running for the air conditioner and just enjoying outside. So I just did nothing and just roamed around just for the fun of it, because I can't really do that a lot of times in the summertime because it gets so hot. And it's the right temperature to pretty much make me itch. Now, with that said, currently my CU is still the same. Earlier this year, I hadn't had a lot of itching, and someone asked me, and I said, the itching has kind of subsided, but that's a little bit scary because I go back to when I had the possible issue with heat exhaustion. One of the signs of CU is, since you don't sweat, the itching will make you run for cover. So that's kind of your way of cooling down so that you can avoid that reaction. Well, when you don't sweat and you have the itching gone, you have nothing that tells you, hey, you're getting too hot. So I wasn't really itching, I wasn't sweating, and then I could feel myself breathing very heavy, feeling very lightheaded, blurry vision a little bit, which is something rare. that never happens to me. And Noelle noticed I was breathing really, really heavy, like I had been running. And I was just sitting down doing some yard work, and it was like I had ran a marathon. So that was something that was a little bit scary for me. Later on in the year, I started to develop the itching sensation again. So if I got too high, it wasn't as bad. This year was not as bad as last year, I have to say. But when I got hot, I did itch, and it was not a huge problem necessarily, but it was something that I did notice. And of course, places that would sweat, like my head, that didn't change, right? So normal circumstances, and I'm hot, my head will sweat, and that's it. But my neck will not sweat. It's the weirdest thing. It will not sweat. So the top of my head, and that's it. Right here, the bald spot, that will sweat. But after that, the back of my head and my neck won't sweat, and then my neck will itch, my back will itch, all of that. Now, the question is, what do you do about it? I don't do anything about it now. I've changed certain things, and I think that's helped quite a bit. Like we make our own laundry detergent. There is a video that we've done about our DIY laundry. So that has helped, I think, because of irritants. There's a lot of chemicals in your laundry stuff, and that stuff's not regulated really. When you look at like fragrance, that's not regulated. Google it. You'll be a bit amazed. Anything that has fragrance in it is not at all regulated, and the companies that make those products don't have to tell you what's in it. I mean, they can, but they're not going to. And these, in order to make a scent, they have to use dozens and dozens of different chemicals to make that scent. So any natural aroma out in nature can be duplicated by man using chemicals. Well, those chemicals are in your clothes. Like if you have certain clothes have those chemicals in them. But definitely things like deodorants, perfumes, colognes, laundry detergent, household cleaners, all that stuff has fragrance, but it doesn't tell you what makes up their fragrance. And so we wanted to get away from as much things as possible. Toothpaste, we make our own toothpaste. We actually make, what's it called? I can't think of it right. Tooth powder. So we make tooth powder. We make our own laundry detergent. And that's been very, very helpful. Noelle makes deodorant. She doesn't use, it's unique. Koreans, this is a sidebar, but some Koreans and some Asian people they have a certain type of, and I forget what it is, where basically they don't smell underneath their arms. I know it's crazy, but it's due to earwax. I know you guys are thinking I am nuts, but if you Google it, the type of earwax, if you have dry earwax like that, that's flaky, and it's so unique. Look at her earwax, which I know it's gross. This is so off topic, but it's all dry and flaky. Whereas our earwax is not like that, right? It's gross. But there's a correlation between that and your armpits, and if you sweat under your arms, whether you smell or not. And some of those folks have that type of gene where they don't smell underneath. That's why if you go to places in Korea or Hong Kong or places like that, you're hard pressed to find deodorant, and when you do, it's super expensive because people don't really use it. There's not a need for it, right? But anyway, back on topic. So I've done a lot of changes there. There's certain foods and things I try to cut out, but none of those things really did do anything. People have said if you exercise and force yourself to sweat, that will help. But the problem is that you could turn on heat exhaustion with that because it may take a while for you to build up your sweating. And then at that point, you're literally just suffering from heat exhaustion. And if no one's there to catch it, or if you don't pay attention, that could be bad. So with me, I basically just do stuff when it's a lot cooler. I do a lot of stuff in the shade. I avoid things that I know is going to irritate me at certain times of the day. Also, stress will bring the sun. The more stressed out, like it could be if something stressed me out back when I was a little bit younger. If something stressed me out, I would instantly break out and start itching. So stress can cause it to flare up. There's so many different things that can create this issue. Now, doctors will give you medicines, but to be honest with you, they're guessing because they don't know what will solve the issue. Not yet. And I don't know if there's anyone that's really researching this to figure out what can solve it. Some people have said, oh, like I've cut out certain foods and wheat or dairy or whatever, and that solved it, or sugar. Who knows if that actually did solve it? It may have, but it may not have. Don't know. Food allergies are bad, and I can see how food allergies can really and truly mess with your system and create those issues. But for me, it didn't really work. So my course of action has just been lifestyle changes, just basically making sure when it's the hottest part of the day, I avoid that. I know my limits at this point. I've been dealing with this since I was like a teenager. So I've gotten many years experience with it. I literally try to make sure that I avoid the teetotally hot times of the day. During the summer, because this area doesn't have air conditioning. I have an air conditioner in the bedroom, so that's where I hang out when it's super duper hot. We have that little pool that the girls plays in, so that helps because again, Zoe gets impacted by it. Now with hers, it's visual, and it is really bad. And it also in the wintertime, it flares up too. The summertime, it doesn't flare up as bad visually, but she does itch quite a bit, and it is in different pockets. In the wintertime, she dries out, right? So she needs a lot of lubricate, like Vaseline or oils, to definitely keep her skin hydrated. Even the doctor said let her swim as much as she wants to in the summer because that water is good for her. Water typically dries you out, but having that moisture helps. In the wintertime, she can't do that, so she has to rely on something that's pretty heavy in terms of just keeping her skin just moist. Now, she doesn't really keep up with it or want to really do it much, but she could easily put gloves on, put Vaseline on, put gloves on, sleep with it, and that will definitely help. There's medication that we have used, and it has taken away a lot of what you see because it's severe. The problem with that is it's a heavy, harsh cream. One's an oil and one's a cream, and we don't really know what that's going to do to her in the future. You understand what I'm saying? So while it will take care of it and treat it, it will take probably, if you apply it every so often, like we're talking every day, this heavy cream, it will definitely knock it down, right? And you don't have these visible, literally her skin looks like scales on her hand, on both hands. Now it used to be bad and on her lip. Now her lip gets really, really dry, but she doesn't have this big, huge, some of the pictures you'll see right under her lip and on her lip, it was just be sores. Her hands sores, where any place bends, like the back of her legs, where her arms bend and fold, there, her elbow, her toes. So those were areas that were really, her neck was really, really bad. And then one of her ears was really, really bad. Now it doesn't affect her neck at all. It doesn't affect her ear. It doesn't affect. So I think the detergent helped with that, so that she's not so heightened with it because she's a kid and she runs around and that type of thing. She is able to sweat, but her itching doesn't happen like mine does. When I get really hot, I will itch instantly. Hers, she will get hot, but the itching is a little bit delayed. So even after she's done playing, she will just continuously itch. And it takes longer for her to get some sort of resolution with that. Even when, like if you put something cold on me, within probably 2 minutes, I'm good. Like an ice pack, anywhere, I'm good. With her, it takes a lot longer to receive, and it could just be due to age, for her to actually feel better. And in the wintertime, when she's too cold, the same thing happens. So she has to heat up. Now, Zara has the issue with her legs if she gets too hot. When she was, 3, her legs look like snake skin. on just the side of her legs because she was wrapped up. Zara likes to wear layers and layers of clothes. So she was wrapped up really, really tight. She had 2 big blankets on. This was in the wintertime. And she said that my legs hurt. Her legs were swelling, right? That's how bad it was. So we took all her clothes off. And when we got to her pants that normally would easily pull off, you had to give it I mean, it wasn't tight, but you had to really work at getting them off. And her legs just looked really bad. We were going to take her to the hospital and I said, wait a second. This looks like what Zoe has, but just a different manifestation of it. And that was the case. After she got out in the cold air, because we were in the hospital parking lot, and Noelle took her pants down. She had her underwear on, took her pants off, and that cold air and wind, it just knocked it out. So then the symptoms start to go away. Otherwise, she didn't have any pain. She wasn't itching. She just noticed her legs were really tight and full, and it was due to the CU. So her CU happens when she is really, 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 really hot. She still does layers. She still bundles up really, really deep. It hasn't happened since, but that 2 years ago, it happened several times, mainly at night. So it could have been something that she ate that also helped bring it on. But all of the kids have some sort of CU. Even Zeta has a little bit of it because she'll wake up and she'll scratch again if she's too hot from sleeping. That's what happens. So anyhow, to kind of end all this, yeah, I still have it. I basically just have changed some things in my life. I definitely tell Zoe how to cope with it and deal with it and work with it. So yeah, that's kind of the situation. Hope that's a little bit helpful. Tell me kind of what your situations are. I know there's several people that have told me about their issues and what they've been doing and how they've dealt with it, and they didn't even know this type of thing existed. I didn't either. I thought I was just going crazy back when I was a teenager. I didn't understand it. I didn't understand why one day, the day before, I could just run everywhere, do everything, and just be fine and normal. And then literally the next day, all of that stopped. And I just couldn't sweat, and I was starting to itch. I didn't realize I wasn't sweating until I was 36. So imagine from being a teenager all those years, I never put 2 and 2 together. I wasn't able to sweat. And that's why the CU comes on. There was only one time during that whole period in my 20s where there was a day when it was scorching hot. No, it was my 30s. And it was when I first met Noelle, and she had an event, and I went to her event, and it was scorching hot in Indiana. And she was worried about me, and yet I had no itching. I was sweating like everybody else, and I was just kind of walking with a skip. And people were looking at me like I was a weirdo. But I was so happy that I could be normal and be out in the sun, sit out in the heat. And I was looking at everyone else like, wow, they're able to do it too. Because when you live like this, you think that everyone's going through the same thing. Like, how come they're not itching right now? And so to be able to sit there and be comfortable, it was great. And I told her, I said, no, I'm happy. Now, my shirt looked like someone dumped a bucket of water on it. So it's like when I do sweat, it is excessive. In Haiti, it was bad. You take a shower, you get out of the shower, and you literally are in sweat again. Like, there's no hot water where I was. It was just cold water. And even in the tropics, that water is still cold because the environment's warm and hot. That water is ice cold. And after I took that cold shower, dried off, I literally walked 2 or 3 feet, got into where the living room part was of that place I was staying, and I was just sweating heavy because it was so hot, just extremely, extremely hot. But anyhow, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you guys are having a great day. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, I will see you. Take care.